And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Save your money. Save your $1 million. Invest it wisely.
Jake and Ben, 97.5.
Whip it out of Tesla as quickly as possible. Because apparently that's an anchor right now.
TrajanWealth.com. Yeah,
there you go. There's our buddies.
Get some good advice. Yeah. Work toward retirement. It's better for you. Although it would be fun. What was that movie back in the Brewster's Millions? You know what I'm talking about? What's his name? The comedian. I'm blanking.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah. Where the concept of the movie is he has to spend
$30 million in 30 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be pretty rad, right?
Yeah. You can't duplicate purchases, right?
I can't remember what the parameters were.
You can't buy a sports team, or maybe he does. Like, he buys the Yankees or something. I can't remember exactly.
And you have to spend it all.
Yeah.
I mean, just the amount of frivolous stuff out there is probably pretty wild.
I would have such a hard time breaking my routine.
Yeah, I just want to get in my car and go to work in the morning.
Yeah, I went to Savers. It's hard to spend $30 million at Savers.
Oh, there aren't enough closets in the world.
Yeah, right. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't know.
No, you'd have
$30 million at the DI.
You'd have to up your shopping.
It's tough to do.
You'd become one of those people that's really buying the label.
Yeah.
Ben shows up in a Ferrari. Be funny.
Yeah, I could spend 30.
I mean,
now it's easier. When that movie
and where is his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
Yeah, get a
bunch of Tom Fords.
Nice pair of glasses.
Yeah.
No, nowadays you could burn through $30 million in lodging alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could spend $30 million by Monday.
Easily.
Easily.
Inflation's been rough.
3 dozen eggs. You're halfway there.
Yeah, we might have to change that $30 million to, I don't know.
We might have to
couple
up
hundred, couple $100 million.
Yeah.
We kind of laugh, but I mean, I am sympathetic with young people, young athletes that all of a sudden come into a lot of money. And you know what? With NIL, it's getting even younger, honestly. So I wonder how this problem expands. But and just not knowing how to handle that kind of money. Because I mean, just think about when you were 18, Ben, and speaking of inflation, like how much $300 seemed. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
So without perspective, imagine all of a sudden just one day you have, $10 million.
Yeah. I'm thinking of,
even like $1 million. I mean, it would be so easy to make so many bad decisions and then eventually end up on an ESPN documentary about how you had no money.
You blew it all, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I was not like a big mall kid in high school or junior high. I wasn't the guy who went and did a bunch of shopping before school started. But I remember one time I went with a kid and his dad gave him $100. And I remember thinking, that's the most money anyone's ever had, ever. And now it's like, if you gave your kids $100, my kids are 9 and 12. Like, I don't know if they would get to lunch. Like you buy 2 pairs of pants, you go get an Orange Julius, you got $4 left. What are you gonna? You got to use that to call me. I don't know what to tell you.
Allen Iverson, in his 20s, decided that he didn't like luggage. He didn't like taking luggage. Just kind of one of those things where it's like a pet peeve. Imagine being able to solve your pet peeves to the extreme. You know what Allen Iverson did? He just paid somebody in the next town, like paid somebody in Salt Lake to go shopping, buy an outfit for him to wear, or multiple, however many outfits he needed, and then have that in his hotel room by the time that he got there, as if it were some sort of like clothes, magic clothes elf that dropped them off for him.
Right.
But he had that kind of resources and decided like, oh, I really have this pet peeve about luggage. I can really solve it in my life. Yeah, it'll cost, I don't know, $500,000 a year.
Yeah, right.
But sure, I could solve that. What do I care? I've got endless amounts of money and zero perspective.
Darren Williams notoriously bought a new, get the time, it was probably PlayStation 2 when he was with the Jazz in every city he went to because he didn't want to pack it and bring it. So he would buy one, this is a rumor, he would buy one every city he went to and leave it in the hotel room. and that whoever cleaned the hotel room got the PlayStation.
That's what AI did too. He left it for whoever cleaned the room.
Yeah.
Got the outfit. Yeah, and it's young people stuff.
Yeah, and you have money. You could afford it if your life continued to pay you $12 million a year in perpetuity. It will not. It stops, and it stops quick, and then there's no more money coming in. So you hope you invested with our friends at Trajan Wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's a pet peeve in your life that if you had endless amounts of money, you could
I would get rid of?
Go to extreme lengths to get rid of? Is there one?
Oh, your parents have a little place in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
I suspect they have clothes there.
Uh-huh.
It would be nice if I didn't have to pack clothes like Allen Iverson, but not every city I go to. But if my vacation place had all my clothes there, I wouldn't have any problem with that at all. Charging cords, that's what it would be. I would have a charging plug for my phone everywhere I go. I hate bringing a charger.
You and AI are if I had endless amounts of money, buy 100 different sets of golf clubs and leave them scattered about.
Across, you've got one in Hawaii. Right. You have one in Arizona. You have one in Southern California.
One on each island in Hawaii.
Yeah, right, yeah. I think that makes sense.
Oh, those are my Maui clubs. Because then you know how annoying it is to pack golf clubs and
I bet,
put them on the airplane?
Horrible. I can't imagine. No, that stinks.
And then you're waiting an extra half hour for the, odd-sized luggage to finally get off the plane. Yeah, it's terrible. If I just left golf clubs in Cancun, that would be much more convenient.
You know what I would really do, honestly? I would have pre-made food for my kids for lunch, so I didn't have to pack their school lunch. As much as I feel like it's an honor and a duty to take care of your children and pack their lunch, and you're one day, even though I hate doing this, one day I'm going to miss doing this, and I try and keep that perspective. If I just had those Tom Brady pre-made meals or whatever I could slip in. It's a TB12.
Okay,
I would invest in TB12.
This is a good one for what we're talking about, though, because there are there are probably inexpensive ways that Allen Iverson wouldn't have to take luggage, right? He could have. I don't know.
Yeah.
He could get a storage locker in every NBA town.
Yeah, right.
He could have done it in a number of different ways, but he solved it at the extreme. So instead of you could get a service or pay the neighbor.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could think of a number of ways to solve your thing. But no, you would pick a way. If you were Allen Iverson, you'd be like, all right, I'm going to enlist Donny Osmond.
He's going to deliver.
He's
going to cook.
He's going to cook me gourmet meals for my kids that he gathers the ingredients for around the world. And that's going to be my solution.
Yeah.
Donnie is going to fly to Mexico to get the avocados for my turkey bacon and avocado sandwich that I'm serving my kids.
Gordon Ramsay is going to cater.
Coma.
Yeah, he's going to cater my kids' meal every day live.
And by the way, Donny Osmond, I was just trying to think of the most expensive local person. Can you imagine how much it would take to pay Donnie to do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's probably for sale.
You could get him to do this.
Yeah.
It's just going to cost an extraordinary amount
because you're
of money.
buying his dignity.
Right.
Yeah. This isn't a guy who's this is what I do for a living. You're getting somebody to do something totally outside of their comfort zone, but everybody has a price tag.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to wear the little hairnet, wear the blue gloves, and have the apron, a la Chris Farley in the Lunch Lady song. But Donnie, you're at the school cooking lunch for my kids. And they're very picky.
This is funny. I wish I had endless amounts of money where I could come up with these extravagant
horrendous ideas
and just unbelievably expensive solutions to life's most minor problems.
What happens if Donny Osmond's not a good cook, though?
It doesn't matter. It's not. That's not what it's about.
That's not the problem. Yeah, the clothes is easy. I mean, you have a plane that they fly for you. You're not paying for.
Yeah, and these guys are flying charter where you're rolling right up.
Literally, you give it to a ball boy and they take it the rest of the way.
Having luggage as an NBA player is the most minor of inconveniences. And imagine spending that kind of money to solve it. Hilarious.
Yeah. Foolish.
Very foolish.
Yeah.
But also young people stuff being the point. A 22-year-old guy.
Yeah.
Who grew up in Newport News, Virginia.
Is that where he's from?
Uh-huh. Huh. It's the Tidewater area. I'm not sure if it's Virginia Beach or Newport News, but it's one of those.
Okay.
So it's like, what are you going to, you've got all this dough. All right. Well, I hate luggage for one. So let's start there. And then we'll go. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that ESPN Broke documentary?
I have seen it, yeah. It's brutal.
Oh, it's sad. It was interesting to see some of them who have gone through it and come out the other side more well-adjusted. And it's like, wow, it must be really hard to have learned that lesson, but to actually come out of that pretty well-adjusted, good for you. I can't imagine.
No, I can't imagine looking back and seeing $200 million gone.
But I've heard stories of people around the Jazz who, people would know the names of that. It's interesting. What another place, and we can move on to more productive stuff. But I do feel bad about the vulnerability to like family and friends and things like that, because I know a lot of it stems from that, where people just come out of the woodwork when you very publicly get a windfall of cash, where all of a sudden it's like, hey, I've got this great idea or that great idea, or really this could make a difference, and this and this and that, and it so often doesn't pan out. Again, TrajanWealth.com.
A lot of these are nice guys that want to help people. Honestly, these are
That's
nice
what I'm
people
saying,
who want to
yeah.
help people. And yeah, they realize, Donovan Mitchell talked forever. How often did he talk about his mom and his sister driving 3 hours to go to a basketball tournament?
Right.
Talked about it every weekend. They were always there for me. So you feel like you got to take care of those people. I get that. But what if it's your uncle that took you, or your aunt that took you, or your cousin that took you, or you stayed with your cousins, or whatever? Then you're paying for everybody.
Or
and
heaven
everybody's on the
forbid
payroll.
you have somebody in your life who is out to take advantage of you.
Yeah, right.
And it's not an innocent thing or just a bad idea or whatever. See Bernie Kosar's dad. Those are those are truly the bad ones. That's why if I ever was an athlete, I would never hire a family member to be my agent.
Yeah.
Like I would never hire my wife to be my lawyer.
Right. Yeah. You did a bad job.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
Jake's being wheeled
We
away
lost
in
the
handcuffs.
case.
I think I was poorly represented.
The lawyer who stares straight forward at the judge when the guilty verdict comes down and tries not to look next to their client is a tough one. That's got to be tough. And you're like, ugh, I should have asked this question. I blew it.
Sorry. All right. Anyway,
We'll send the bill to the jail.
that was a fun place to start.
Thanks, Sublime.
So nobody is going to be playing tonight for the Timberwolves. Is that the story? Or it looks that way because Ant-Man is going to get suspended?
Anthony Edwards last night picked up his 15th and 16th technical fouls. If he wanted to go back and argue it and dispute it, the NBA could say, hey, one of those was undeserved. The problem was, as he was walking off the floor, he then threw the ball into the crowd, which is not going to gain you a lot of...
Well, might get you suspended.
Might get you suspended anyways, right. Remember Steph Curry threw his mouthpiece into the stands, and people wanted him suspended in the playoffs because traditionally throwing anything into the crowd or hitting a fan with anything is an automatic suspension. So, no, I don't think we see Ant tonight. Second night of a back-to-back. Rudy didn't play last night. Julius Randle has not yet returned to the lineup. So they're thin if Rudy and Julius don't play.
Well, Rudy hasn't been back since the All-Star break.
And he's close. I just don't know exactly what his status is. I can pull that up. But, yeah, it might be a shorthanded Timberwolves team. And that's interesting because my bet, understanding the Jazz's goals this year to lose games, especially the game coming up on Sunday against the New Orleans Pelicans, which New Orleans has suddenly won 3 in a row and has a 2-win advantage on the Jazz. The Jazz would probably love to extend that to 3 with the game on Sunday to improve their tanking chances or their lottery odds. You could have played everybody against a healthy Minnesota team, said, look, we tried, but now we're going to let some guys rest on Sunday because they all played on Friday, and it's the front end of a back-to-back on Monday against Detroit, who's a better team, and you could again play your guys and probably lose those games. Now, if you play all your guys against Minnesota, you have a chance to win this game because they're not playing anybody. And on Sunday, if you haven't played anyone against the Timberwolves, you probably play your guys on Sunday and you have a chance to beat the Pelicans. So as you do that math, it might get a little difficult. Then again, at this point in the season, as I've said, if your goal is to lose games, you can have no shame. You've got to get rid of that. You've got to stop being embarrassed. You've got to stop worrying about what the fan experience is for that night. You just got to sit everybody. You're going to need a lot of Oscar Sheepway minutes. And that's fine. If your goal is to get a number 1 overall pick, get the best pick possible, I think you have to do that. You have to commit to it, and you have to hope the fans that understand, and the fans that don't, you say you're sorry.
So you have to, much like Donny Osmond in our scenario about clothes shopping, you really have to swallow that integrity.
Put the apron on. You get the hairnet on.
You've got to get rid of
your hands,
all of that.
Get yourself elbow deep into the sloppy joes.
Yeah, I just don't know if I'm okay with. I'm not okay with any of this.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter how much you protest.
Right,
It doesn't matter is the issue, and that's I do feel that way. I'm with you. Like, ideally, 30 teams tried every night, and the fans got their money's worth. I was talking to a guy yesterday who was just kind of a casual Jazz fan at the bank, and he was saying, "Yeah, I just go to the games and I have fun for a night, and I leave. I have friends that follow it through and bleed Jazz basketball and follow it all summer long." And I just want to go and enjoy a game. And I think that's a great way to enjoy sports. And I understand if your idea is, hey, I'm tuning in to watch 2.5 hours of sport, and I want to watch the best players in the world, and you don't get that, that's frustrating. I totally get it. Me protesting what the NBA has devolved into in this aspect, I feel like I'm, yelling at clouds. It doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't change my job. It doesn't better the product. So I try and make the best of the product that I cover. Not to sell it, but because it makes me enjoy it more.
Plastic cumulonimbus or whatever the cloud is called.
Yep.
Well, then you're talking about strategic rest and all this stuff, but if that's true, then they should. Why Lowry Markkanen shouldn't play another game? Colin Sexton shouldn't play another game. John Collins shouldn't play another game. Jordan Clarkson shouldn't play another game. Walker Kessler shouldn't play another game.
And we'll get there. I've been looking back
at... But like this, why don't they do that? Because they'll get fined by the league or something like that because it's still against the rules somehow.
Yeah.
So get rid of that rule or enforce it.
Yeah.
So why don't they enforce it?
Yeah, there is the weird, like if you're on national TV, so the bad teams are never on national TV, so it doesn't get enforced against them as much, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, the fan in the stands doesn't care. Tonight,
the point is because it's all cats. It's not there. There's nothing. It's how do you prove it? The only people who've ever gotten fined for taking are Jason Kidd and the Dallas Mavericks.
They talked about it
because they talked about it.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to enforce it. Why did they get rid of flopping fines? They actually didn't get rid of that cat. Honestly, that cat is still in the wall.
Yeah.
But they never do it because there's no way to enforce it.
Right. And even if Josh Hart got fined the other day, what does he care? He flop tomorrow.
No, the problem is the draft. The problem is the way that they do the draft. And it's actually a problem in all sports, but somehow with the NBA, because one individual player is so very important that it has totally corrupted the rest of the league and made this a mess. Fans, you want to talk about fan experience and stuff like that. You don't need to lie to your fans. Jazz fans know what's going on. Even your casual fan buddy.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He knows exactly what's happening. So why do you have to fake it? You know what I mean? And good on Jazz fans for still going.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for that guy you talked to.
Yeah.
Because they've had to step up, and I give them, Ryan Smith certainly, but going back to the Millers, they've stepped up the fan experience in that building.
They have.
Stepped it up. The last remodel, I mean, I'm sure they clutched their pearls the whole way, but they put beer stands everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's bars there now. There's different clubs from the, you can go up and do, is it still called the Ford Fan Zone? If I'm getting the sponsor right, I apologize. But that club up at the very top where it's designed to be kind of a experience for a more affordable family, all that, right down to, you know what the best part of the reno, in my opinion, was, Ben? The portals that go to the second level.
Okay.
There used to be so to get to the Toyota Club, or, and this is a sneaky hack if you're in the lower bowl, some very fine restrooms. You can go through that portal as opposed to
going up on the main concourse.
You only could go main concourse or floor level. That was it. And you had to be in the 100 club to access the floor level portals. You know what I mean? So the fan experience over there has gotten significantly better.
It is.
So give them credit for that. I think that's part of the reason they can keep their prices high, which unfortunately is pricing some people out of the market, but they've made it accessible on television. The problem is the story sucks this year. It sucks. They're doing it for a reason. I feel bad for the players. This has been my theme about Will Hardy for the entire season. I feel bad for him because he's the one who has to swallow his integrity the most. David and Pat were talking about this today. Pat was saying he's got a coach to lose games. I don't think it's fair to ask a coach that. So you can mess with the lineup all you want, I suppose. Even that, I think, is kind of ridiculous. But you can't pull the coach aside and say, you have to throw this game. I don't think that's fair. I don't know if the Jazz have done that. I kind of doubt it. Excuse me. But that's not fair to do to the coach, I don't think. Or the players. You're going to ask the players to lose?
I feel worse for the players. I don't feel bad for a player getting the night off. I feel worse for the players when they recognize, like, hey, I'm out here. This is my chance to win. My legacy is going to be defined by winning. Coach, I don't feel bad for so much at all. Because he also reaps the benefits of getting a good player in the draft, whereas, a player on this team is going to get replaced by whoever they draft. Someone on this team loses their gig in Utah and probably ends up in the NBA somewhere else, but maybe not. Somebody loses a gig because somebody else gets brought into the draft. That is the competition level, and again, they're paid handsomely for it. But regarding tonight, we have not seen a Minnesota Timberwolves injury report updated yet. Larry Markkinen questionable. Colin Sexton upgraded to questionable after missing the last several games with that ankle injury. John Collins also questionable. So
it's not fair to Colin Sexton. I'll tell you why. Because in a league full of people that don't want to play, that's a guy who's dying to play every minute of every game.
And he does. He's actually hurt right now. But
and he is.
Yeah.
But they've sat him at times this year. He was the one they were kind of hesitant, I think, to sit because it just doesn't sit well with him.
Yeah, he's rested 2 or 3 games this year. You're right. It's a guy who traditionally has fought that.
All right, top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com. Coming up next, it is Jake and Ben. We've got Mitch at 11 and Cole Bagley at 11:30. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Josh Grant, Utah Ute legend, joining us right now on JJ and Alex.
The first thing is this is a basketball school. It's changed. Everybody thinks it's a football school, but the University of Utah is a basketball school. We have just played so poorly over the last 20 years that people forgot that. We need to be competing with the football program for the attention of our own fan base. There's no way that we can have such a good fan base at football and then you go up to a basketball game and you got 3,000 people there. Back when we actually had a good product here, we would play the worst team in the conference and Huntsman Center was full. And the customers are always right, and in this case, the customers are the fans. And if fans aren't coming, you're doing something wrong.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Real quick before we get to top 3 stories, that Walker Kessler cut. I forgot to tell you about this yesterday. I almost lost my mind. Because I was so worried. He had the blood coming down his face with about 10 seconds to go.
2 days ago, but yeah.
But I was going to tell you about it yesterday. With about 10 seconds to go, if they would have stopped the game to clean that up,
yeah, right.
I would have absolutely lost my mind.
Yeah.
So I want to thank the officials for just being like, okay.
Just finish it up.
Finish it.
Run the clock.
10 seconds to go.
Go wipe your mouth off. I was a little annoyed post-game. He was walking around high-fiving everybody, hugging everybody from the other team. No one just like, hey, man, you've got blood all over your face. I don't want to hug you. Here's a towel. Wipe your face off, and I'll dap you up.
But of all the, coaches' timeouts with 90 seconds to go up 20, and the reviews or the challenges that are just
I'm with you.
Unbelievable wastes of time. The fact that they let time run out. Can you imagine 10 seconds? They're like, up.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Got to get this stopped.
Sub them out.
All right. Top 3 stories of the day KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. Cherish your love with J. Brooks Jewelers. Explore their expertly crafted engagement rings made from the finest materials. All right, Christian, where do you want to start today?
Number one, the Utah Hockey Club. They beat Minnesota last night 6-1. And let me tell you, Clayton Keller must love playing against the Wild.
Pass all the way back to Sergachev on the blue line. Keller shoots, tipped on goal, rebound, they score! Clayton Keller piles on here in the third, and it's 5-1. And Keller has himself a 3-point night.
Ended up with 5 points, 4 assists, 1 goal on a beautiful backhand. This was the most dominant game, I think, of the year so far for the Utah Hockey Club against a good Wild team. They're beat up right now a little bit, but there's a good Minnesota Wild team that's probably going to make the playoffs. Looks pretty safe to make the playoffs. And the Clubbies have now won 6 of 8. They've won 3 straight, and they look to be getting better as all the bodies have returned to the ice. Everyone seems to be gelling very nicely.
The hottest team in the league, Ben. And what the other 2 teams lost yesterday, right? Vancouver and Calgary.
Yeah, they both lost.
I'm curious to see or get further familiar with exactly how hard it is to make up or give ground in this playoff push. So, love to see some playoff hockey in Salt Lake. That'd be super cool.
One of the hard parts is that the hockey club has played a game more than both Vancouver and Calgary. So yes, while they are only 2 points back, or 1 point back in that case, they're ahead a game. So you're kind of playing with a little bit of fake money. These other teams have a chance to make up those points more easily than you do to overcome them. But fun game. Thursday playing great. Obviously, Keller played as well as I've seen, and the GM of Minnesota was the guy who put together the the Four Nations USA team that snubbed Clayton Keller. So there's some belief that was a...
He has 9 total points against the Wild this season.
Yeah, there's some belief that
he's taking it to him.
He's taking it to him on purpose. But he was awesome, and that's what you need from your best player. That's what he's going to have to be down the stretch. Dylan Guenther still had the big goal. Cooley's still fabulous. Sergachev was great last night. But you're going to need your best player to step up and have some of these historic performances. And, 5 points was a career high for him. Obviously, if it's a career high for him, then probably a career high or a franchise high as it was. First 5-point player in Utah Hockey Club history. So I'm excited to see how they continue to play, but they're on a hot streak right now.
That always, the revenge thing always reminds me of that scene in Major League where Charlie Sheen thinks he gets cut. And he goes into the manager's office and he says, "Hey, I'm going to catch on somewhere else. And every time I pitch against you, I'm going to And then he throws the ball against the thing. And Lou Brown goes, "That's great. Except I didn't cut you." I think somebody is messing with you. But that feeling that, I think a lot of players get that, And probably a lot of general managers don't blame players for feeling that way, I'm guessing.
Yeah, of course. And probably a decent motivator. These guys are always looking for an edge. So good for Clayton to have one.
If Rudy were going to play tonight against the Jazz, I'm sure he'd love to have a good game.
Yep.
Even though maybe he'd rather have a good game. Well, no. I was about to say against Dallas, like against Dennis Lindsey. But that wasn't who traded him, so never mind.
No, yeah.
All right, what's next?
Number 2, big weekend of college basketball. It seems like BYU has locked themselves into the tournament. We'll see what happens with Utah State. And, of course, we know Utah is out at this point.
Yeah, I guess the question is how well can BYU play to improve their standings or their seeding when it comes to the NCAA tournament. And some of that may just come down to what they do in the Big 12 tournament. But, of course, you're trying to get high enough in the Big 12 that you get the double bye in the first 2 rounds to advance further. That would certainly be helpful.
Except for that seeding is kind of one of those things they use all the formulas and stuff. It might actually negate some of the recency bias, honestly. So, games like these, because they matter to the silly computer rankings, actually matter. Like, BYU should absolutely be trying to take it to West Virginia at home. Because they use that stuff. I don't know if people like it. I mean, they have to sort so many teams. You've got to use something. But I think BYU's in. I think their seeding is going to be based on their win total and who exactly they beat. So who they beat in the conference tournament might be important. But it's certainly important not to gaff one at home against West Virginia.
Don't lose to West Virginia. You know Iowa State's going to be very tough on the road on Tuesday, and then you close up on Saturday, a week from tomorrow, against Utah, and you certainly don't want some random emotional game to come and bite you. And then, yes, you end up with a very tough first-round matchup in the Big 12 tournament that you didn't get a bye for because you lost a game, you booted a game that you shouldn't have, and you get eliminated there, and then you find yourself in an 8-9 matchup, and even if you win, you're playing, Auburn in the second round. That's what you want to avoid. You want to certainly win a game, which BYU has struggled to do recently in the NCAA tournament. You'd love to get past the first weekend.
And for the Utes playing Arizona State, I hope a Ute fan goes to the game and gives me a report. I want to know just how red Bobby Hurley turns at some point during the game.
Yeah, sure. Send photos.
That guy is a crazy person. I want to know if it's like tomato red, like he's about to have a stroke or something.
You think Utah has a basketball coach by Monday?
No.
That's probably a little quick, but I think that's got to be the goal. I mean, he's not going to coach this year.
No, why the goal? You can't hire another college coach until the season's over. You can't hire, if you really were going after, say, Richard Pitino.
I don't think they are. That's the thing. I think it's just Alex Jensen. I think that's it. I think that's the whole goal. I think that's what they're going to do. I think that's the plan. I think that is who's going to be the next head coach. And it's just a matter of, getting everything signed, the ink drying. But
yeah, I don't know.
I would love to see big investments in the Utah basketball program. BYU has had huge investments in their program, and it has paid off for them. I would love to see something similar for the Utes, but we'll see. Not like BYU. I don't expect that, but
I don't know.
A reinvigoration of that program.
I'm not gonna hold my breath. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. I don't know. No, I don't think they make a hire by Monday. I mean, is it truly inevitable that it's Alex Jensen? I don't know. Why hasn't it happened already then?
Yeah, I mean, some of that might just be timing on the road, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe Alex isn't that interested.
Ink drying is just a cliche. I'm sure Utah would love to announce it as soon as possible, or at the very least leak it.
Yeah.
Have Bartle dropping a Bartle bomb out there that Alex is going to take the job.
No Bartles today, by the way. No Bartle bombs today. Not from us. We had him on the show earlier this week.
So if it's truly inevitable, I mean, we know, right?
I don't know. We didn't know about Witt until, and that was totally in Witt's control. But Utah's done pretty well to keep things private.
Yeah, that was Witt truly didn't know. I believe that. Mark Harlan needs a win. He needs this news to get out.
He does, which is why I think it's going to be Alex Jensen. And I think they will figure out a way to get it done, hell or high water. But maybe I'm wrong. And if so, and they don't win next year, Harlan's probably out.
Well, whoever.
Yeah.
If whoever doesn't win, Harlan's going to be out. That's his problem.
They might give Alex Jensen a year.
Oh, no, they'll give Alex Jensen multiple years. In fact, they'll probably give Harlan multiple years to see if it will get figured out. Next year, I don't think they have to win next year.
No, nor would you expect them to.
No. All right. And then Utah State has Colorado State? The Aggies need the 2 seed, so they got to go win.
Yep, they do.
All right.
Number 3, in case you missed it, the Jazz, they host the Timberwolves tonight. Anthony Edwards will not be playing. He is suspended.
Is it official he's suspended? I know you get your 16th, you're supposed to be suspended. You have an appeals process. I don't think he will win that appeal. So most likely he's out. And I have not seen an updated injury report yet. The Timberwolves, as of the last time I checked, had not released theirs. Let's see if it's out yet. No, they have not submitted it yet.
I'm guessing they're not going to play anybody.
I would think so. Second night of a back-to-back. But again, nobody played last night. That's why they lost to the Lakers. I mean, not nobody, but you didn't get Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and I don't know what their time frame is. Monday, this is last Monday, Julius Randle was upgraded to questionable. So I think he's been close. But, if you bring him back, does that necessarily mean they beat the Jazz? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, there are players for the Jazz who are playing well. So, and if they play, the Jazz absolutely have a chance to win against a fully loaded Minnesota team, honestly. But if you don't play those guys, then maybe it's a different story. But if Walker Kessler plays, the Jazz have a chance to win. I think he's that impactful right now.
Yeah, if John Collins plays, if Lowry plays against a Timberwolves team that's missing that many pieces, they're beatable. The Timberwolves just aren't that good. That's why they're in the play-in right now. They just haven't been that good all year. So if they miss players, they're really not very good.
And they need to move off Julius Randle before Rudy gets too old, or move off Rudy.
And I don't think they can do either.
You think Julius Randle's now the old maid?
He's going to pick up his contract option next year for $31 million. No one else is paying him. There's no free agency money, A, and nobody wants him, B. It's a really tough spot to be in. I think most teams would rather have John Collins right now than Julius Randle.
I'd believe that. I think Bradley Beal is still more.
Yeah, he's still
unmovable.
the worst player, worst contract in the NBA, and he has multiple years. But Julius is not that far behind other than the fact that he's expiring next year.
Way to go, Knicks.
But the Timberwolves are 2-4 in their last 6. They're a mess.
They're currently projected the number 17 pick for all those watching to see if they slip into the lottery.
Yeah. And again, like we've said, the difference between 14 and 17 is not a big deal. The fact that you're getting a middle of the first round pick from the Timberwolves after trading Rudy, which was their all-in move to try and win a championship, shows exactly how disastrous that trade has been. Not that Rudy hasn't been very good. It didn't fix the team the way they thought.
Are we going to see Joe Ingles hang 30 on his old squad?
30 seconds? Or 30 points?
30 points!
Oh, I'll be surprised if he gets 30 seconds.
30 steps taken down the
30
court.
steps, yeah, right. He exists solely between the tops of the three-point line. He does not certainly doesn't break the foul line on either side of the ball.
He didn't play last night, meaning he's going to be fresh.
He's going to be fresh. Be ready to go.
We see the Joe Ingles game.
And they're still talented. You know, Dante DiVincenzo's back. Jaden McDaniel's a very good player. No, he hasn't been great. But they've got guys. This won't be a Jazz blowout, I don't think. But I bet it's a competitive game.
I hope Joe gets up like at least 18 to 20 shots.
Okay. Like his last hurrah.
Like the last gasp, like Kobe Bryant's last game.
Randy Quaid in Independence Day.
I think Kobe took 60 shots in his last game, though. It's a lot.
Mamba mentality. Joe's got to have that Mamba mentality.
He might.
The death rattle.
It's more of a death rattle.
I think that's what we're going to see tonight. Stick it to him. Charlie Sheen style.
Okay.
All right, stay tuned. We'll get to more coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Ute Insider, Steve Bartle. Alex Jensen was in the mix when Craig got hired. In fact, I know that he was offered the job and decided to stay put with the Utah Jazz at that point. I got to imagine Mark Harlan will make that phone call again.
You know, he will be at the top of the list. Alex Jensen, he is the dream hire, given the fact that he's beloved as a player with what he accomplished here under Rick Majerus. Kevin Young at BYU, he sort of paved a path for coaches in that same sort of position. I think for Utah, this is an opportunity to potentially, hit a home run, a hire if you're able to bring him in. That will help kind of turn the vibes around with Utah basketball.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us? No!
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, this segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Peach Doors and Windows. Also want to remind you about Win Ticket Wednesday, your chance to win big every week. Listen to The Zone all day on Wednesdays for your chance to win.
Excited to talk to Cole coming up in the next hour, Cole Bagley. Get a breakdown on the Utah Hockey Club. This is a question we've kind of asked a lot. I do think you look at, 5 wins in their last 7 games now, 3 straight. This feels like a successful season. Barring there's 23 games left, they go 4-18 or whatever it is, 4-19. I think this is a year that is significant growth compared to what we can, pull away from what happened last season. Not that I followed the team game in and game out. I didn't, but they had a 13-game losing streak right in the middle of the year when all the sales stuff started to prop up. The young players came in and looked promising, but we have seen Kenneth Lofton Jr. step up and look promising late in the season for a team and it not mean anything. You look now in these must-win games, every game is basically win or you're going to fall too far out of the playoffs. They don't have a lot of leeway. and Cooley's stepping up, and Gunther's stepping up, and Durzee's stepping up, and Keller's stepping up. All of these guys who are 26 or younger, and in a couple of cases of those guys, 21 and younger, they're playing big games that you would think, traditionally with how sports work, will really pay off next year, the year after, the year after. You know, in Dylan Gunther's case, he's here for 8 years. At least he's under contract. Cooley's deal is going to get done very quickly soon, too, I would imagine. Like, this is the work you put in. These are the hours you put in. So when you really are in a spot where you're not hoping to make the playoffs, but you're well positioned to be in the playoffs, you're going to look back and say, yeah, this was the growth season.
Yeah, I could buy into it. A lot of energy when you move a team, and you got to capitalize on it. Ben, if somebody contradicted a report that you made, you do break a lot of news.
Mm-hmm.
Would you confront them physically?
Sure, you have to. Yeah, you have to.
In public?
At a Starbucks?
You simply must.
Have you been following the story with Jordan Schultz, who, by the way, used to come on my show weekly for like a long time?
Jordan Schultz is the son of
Howard Schultz,
who owns Starbucks.
He was also the former intern for David Locke, Jordan Schultz.
Oh, Jordan Schultz was? Okay.
And the owner of the Seattle Supersonics.
Oh, how did he get the job with Locke?
Yeah, I wonder how he got that one. But anyway, there was some report on Matthew Stafford, and he and Ian Rappaport had conflicting reports or something stupid. And yes, they got in a confrontation at Starbucks, and Rappaport
did, and Jordan Schultz did. Okay,
and then Rappaport got NFL security involved or something, made a report because Schultz threatened him or something.
Yeah.
But my takeaway from this is, if you are the son of Howard Schultz, you got to pick a different place to confront Ian.
Than Starbucks?
Yeah.
At least it wasn't like Beans and Brews. At
No,
least
do you
he
think
wasn't
that was planned out?
No,
yeah, it's home field advantage.
No, I don't think you can do it. I think it brings too much embarrassment to the fan. That's how a story goes from, oh, this is just a stupid insider NFL story to a national story.
It makes sense. They were in Indiana, which is where the Combine's going on. So everybody's there. This wasn't just two random dudes.
No, this is at the Combine in Indianapolis at a hotel Starbucks. If you're Jordan, you have to confront him outside or something, dude.
Again, glad it wasn't at a rival coffee store. It's nah.
It would have been better.
You think so?
Or just can't pick a coffee store.
Yeah, just don't be in the coffee shop.
Because what makes this a unique story? Two pencil neck reporters screaming at each other in public? That probably happens between you and Sarah Todd 3 times a week.
Constantly, yeah.
But how does it? What makes it a unique story? How do you get picked up by the national news? Well, you're the son of the founder of the coffee shop you got in a fight in.
Do you know the backstory why they were fighting?
Yeah, what's the context?
So Jordan Schultz reported that Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady met at a ski lodge or something about Stafford potentially being traded to the Raiders. Ian Rappaport came out and tweeted, "Oh no, this is just a chance meeting. This was not pre-planned at all."
Well, if that's not worth fighting over, I don't know what is.
If that's not worth, you should have put boiling hot coffee in his face.
That makes it even go more viral. The idea, remember, you don't want to get the conversation. You don't want to get famous for the wrong thing.
Yeah,
you don't want to make national news because you yelled at some other guy in public.
Anywhere,
yeah, anywhere. But if he does this at on the corner outside the hotel, nobody even knows about it.
The transcript of this fight is great.
Ronald McDonald's kid can't threaten somebody inside of McDonald's.
Schultz approached Ian Rappaport and said, "We need to talk." Rappaport replied, "We don't need to talk." Schultz then made accusations about Rappaport. We're told this is per Pro Football Talk. And it said the accusations were unfounded. "If you have anything to say to me, say it to my bleeping face," Schultz said, or specific words to that effect. "If this continues, we're going to have a bleeping problem." I love tough guys.
Rappaport then called NFL security over.
Yeah, right.
And they diffused the situation.
And you know what? You absolutely should. If I were at a Jazz game and there was some lunatic reporter who was threatening me physically, I would want the Jazz to get involved, and yes, I would want the NBA to get involved. You're not supposed to be having fistfights down there. You're covering sports. Give me a break, you two ego maniacs. Especially Schultz here. Looks like he needs to switch to decaf.
Oh, I think Ian's kind of naive, though. Oh, it just happened.
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah.
So I'm not letting Ian off the hook.
No, but you're bozos.
Rappaport was on Pat McAfee's show. They asked him where he's going to get his coffee from next, and he said Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, he's a Dunkin' guy now.
See,
that's why it's a national story.
I'm not a big Starbucks guy. The coffee's too acidic for me. My gentle palate, my delicate teeth don't like the coffee.
I don't like the cost, but that's why
that's both of it.
I either, if I'm buying coffee, it's at a gas station or the grocery store.
That McDonald's $1 cup is pretty good.
But I'm not a coffee snob.
Yeah, right. Yeah, neither am I. Give me the crap.
All right, stay tuned. We've got Mitch Harper who's going to join us.
Not a coffee guy.
Talk to him about the Cougs and maybe how high can they get seated if they play well down the stretch. We'll talk to him next.
Football Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Ben, it's time to talk a little Cougs on a Friday. Hit it, Christian.
It's time to get the inside info on BYU with Cougar Insider Mitch Harper of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Joining us now, the man, the myth, the legend, covers BYU for KSLSports.com, our buddy Mitch Harper. What's going on there, Mitch?
Hey, happy to be on, guys.
Mitch, I said this yesterday. Jake argued with me, but that's what Jake does. It feels like in the past, college football and spring football have been a nice distraction from lackluster basketball teams. It feels like BYU football or spring football might go under the radar a little bit despite the fact that they're coming off a great year because the basketball team's playing so well.
Definitely. BYU basketball has been flying high, and, I think that what has people excited about basketball is that it has the feeling that it could be the beginning of some long-term success. When Mark Pope had any sort of success, it was always a feeling of, is he going to leave? Is he going to move on? And where's Kevin Young? He pretty much made it clear that, this is one of the few jobs that he wanted to be at, that he was identified as a place that he'd want to, coach at. And they got the number one player coming next year. And, there's some good things happening for BYU basketball. And you're right. I mean, football, less than 2 months removed from the bowl game, and they're already back in action. And I think there's still just kind of that feeling too of they're going to have to, be a team that they'll take the spotlight in the fall, but basketball is really riding high and for good reason because they're playing so well right now.
So what do you think that they're looking at from a seed range standpoint? Like if things go well, how high can it get? And maybe if they have a couple of bumps, where can they slide to?
I think they're probably in that 8 to 9 territory. It's tricky with BYU because if you think that they're going to go into Selection Sunday as an 8, probably count on them being a 9 or a 10 because of the Sundays. And then you also factor in now these supersized conferences avoiding, potential round of 32 matchups with a conference foe. And it gets really tricky when you're talking about BYU in a league that potentially has 8 bids. Pair that up with no Sunday play. The spots are very limited for BYU. So I would say probably an 8 to 9 still, but I've seen BYU over the years. There's always a shock. Like, how did this happen? How did BYU end up with a 6 seed last year? Well, folks, they don't play on Sundays. It's been happening so many years, and they are one of the trickiest teams, if not the trickiest team, to slot in that bracket. And now being in the Big 12, they're even a bigger challenge. If you want to follow, bracketing principles that the selection committee lives by. So, it'll be interesting. If they can continue to pile up these wins and close out this season. If they can, extend this win streak in the regular season, that includes a trip to Iowa State, they could maybe get as high maybe as a 7 or a 6, I would think. But I still think right now that 8 to 9 territory is where you probably think BYU is going to be to this point.
Realistically, what does the Big 12 tournament look like for BYU? What's best case scenario? What's most likely? And, what that weekend might look like?
If they can, get that 4 seed, that's still in the cards for BYU. They're tied with Iowa State for that 4th seed. And if they get that, they have a bye, 2 byes until the quarterfinal round. And then they would only need to play 3 games to potentially win a Big 12 tournament title. So the 4 seed would probably be the best case scenario and a spot where if they could get that, that would be a huge luxury to maybe have a chance to make a run in Kansas City.
How about that win in Arizona? I mean, that's a statement win as BYU has made in a while. I guess you could look back at Kansas last year, but what does that do for them? What does that say about them?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that it was a game where you took Arizona's best effort and the high level, shot making, the offenses on both ends, and BYU thrived in that space. And, I've watched many BYU basketball teams over the years get into a, energized environment and a team's playing at its best, a really good team. And, BYU maybe folds late. And BYU looked just as talented, just as athletic, the high level shot making. I think that's what comes away is so impressive about that performance beyond just simply the win and winning in McKell Center in Tucson and those sort of things. But, back and forth, they took Arizona's best shot offensively and still came out on top. I've seen many BYU games over the years where they pull off a big upset and maybe that team that was, the odds-on favorite just played well below what you typically grow, used to that team playing at. And that was not the case. And in BYU with Kevin Young, you're seeing a high-level operation that, honestly, what BYU's doing, you got to imagine a lot of college programs around the country are going to be looking at, hey, what can we do to become BYU? BYU is becoming a little bit of a trendsetter in college basketball. And with the way that they're operating, the NBA influence that Kevin Young has, his background, he's settling in. And this coaching staff's getting real comfortable with their personnel, their groupings, and it's a pretty impressive product. And I think that they're playing some of their best basketball at the right time, and that was a huge win and a signature win for Kevin Young in his first year.
Mitch, I'm always really skeptical of copycat approaches to building teams. And I guess let me ask you this about BYU. Because BYU is so unique, traditionally trying to do anything to copycat how they have won would be a bad idea. This is such a zig to BYU's traditional zag of how they've built this program. Do you think it's replicable by other teams? Because I actually do have my doubts about that.
I think that it could be replicated because but I think the only way that it couldn't is because Kevin Young was someone that was really intrigued by BYU, and he's obviously a member of the church, and it was a place that he wanted to be at. And so in that sense, that's hard to find, NBA assistants that, want to be at a place. But if you could find that person and they've got, long, connections and background in basketball, I mean, maybe it could work. Kevin Young's unique because not only does he have the NBA experience, he's also got so many connections at the grassroots level of basketball where, he can get, intel on a player and get recommendations. Like they found Mihailo Baskovic last September. That was Kevin Young and his connections. They identified Baskovic and then swooped in and got him, right as the semester started in the fall. And Baskovic, he's been, the third string center, but, he could be, if he stays, you never know with the portal and year by year roster movement, but, he could be a player that's a key piece next year as maybe the backup to Keita. And, maybe he's someone that could have a chance to play professionally overseas, whatever it may be. I mean, that was a nice addition to the front court late, and that's because of all the connections and that Kevin Young has that have spanned, these last 2.5 decades. He started from the ground up and really worked his way up the ladder to become one of the top assistants in the NBA. And now I think he's emerging as one of the best coaches in the Big 12, which is annually going to be one of the best leagues in college basketball. So it's a good starting point for Kevin Young. But, yeah, it'll be hard to replicate for other places. But I think that allure of how I think people are just blown away by the fact that BYU getting a number one recruit, selling the NBA at BYU. Well, why can't a place in the Big Ten or the SEC that's got more resources, why can't they replicate that? But you're right. I mean, there is a little bit of nuance to BYU that makes them unique.
Switch into football, Mitch. Spring football, where Ben and I disagreed, was I often find spring football quite boring.
Yeah.
And it's even more boring when you're bringing back a lot of players, right? Because there's not – those big questions in spring ball where you can see things filter out. So with that in mind, what are kind of the major storylines you've got your eye on?
Well, I think that, how they're handling expectations, and, Kalani's program has, done a really good job in this decade. BYU's 10th in wins in college football since 2020. They've won 70% of their games. It's not like last year was the only season that they won at a high level, but it was the first time, obviously, in the Big 12. So the preseason and going into the preseason media poll, I got to think BYU is going to probably be in that top 4 of the Big 12 media poll this summer down in Frisco. So how they handle expectations will be interesting this year, and the quarterback spot is going to be a big focal point. What growth does Jake Retzlaff make? I don't think you're going to see much, if at all, in spring ball. But, what's behind him with McKay Hillstead and Trayson Bourget, who becomes a clear-cut number 2 guy at that quarterback spot? That's going to be an intriguing storyline. And then some of the position battles defensively, cornerback position. I put out a way too early, projected starting lineup in January at cornerback, because that was an area where how do you replace Jacob Robinson? How do you replace Mark Collins? Jonathan Cabella is a player that he was a freshman last year, played as the backup nickel for Jacob Robinson, but got some significant opportunities in games last year that kind of went under the radar. But yesterday he's with the first team defense at nickel, and he's paired up with Maury Bamba and Trey Alexander. That cornerback position is going to be an area where they need to establish some stars, but I think they've got some potential, and I think Jonathan Cabella is going to be a really big name to watch. He's kind of in that Eddie Heckard type role. He's got all the potential, I think, to be a really good one for BYU in the secondary. And then seeing some of the new guys with the transfers from Utah, Carson Ryan and Keanu Tanavasa. Carson Ryan, Kalani said yesterday, he's going to have a big-time impact on BYU's offense. BYU wants to have, more of pass catching, tight ends this season. Last couple of years, it's been primarily blocking. Carson Ryan's going to be a factor. He's going to be their number 1 tight end, I would imagine, this season. And then Keanu Tanavasa's one of the leaders of the defense. Adding him was massive for BYU, because the interior, they got solid guys, but they didn't have a star when you're trying to replace John Nelson and Blake Mangelson, and those are big losses. And Tanavasa just steps in. It feels a little bit like plug and play, because there's so much crossover between the 2 defensive schemes at Utah and BYU. Different vernaculars, of course, and he's going to have to learn that. But all indications would say that Tanavasa is going to be a real star for BYU, and he was, of course, with the first team defensive line yesterday during the team portion.
Mitch, thank you. Appreciate you and your fine work. We'll be following for spring football and, of course, basketball news. So we appreciate you.
You bet. Take care.
Thanks, Mitch.
There you go, Mitch Harper.
Do you think BYU's approach in basketball is easily replicable by other teams around the country?
Some. But not all, no.
I think you could fall into a trap of, it would be a mistake to think that BYU is a small school. It's not, because we know the cultural fan base is enormous. So it has a following, not, let's say Notre Dame, but, similar to these kind of nationwide fan bases. If you're Vanderbilt, I don't think you can say, what did BYU do with their basketball team? Maybe we can do that and we'll land Cam Boozer. I know he's going to Duke. But, I actually think that's a much trickier proposal if that's what you're trying to sell. And you could have a lot of people sink a lot of money and do exactly that. The money is gone, and it doesn't end up in long-term success.
I actually think Vanderbilt is a bad example for the point you're trying to make, which
Okay,
I do agree with the point you're trying to make. But Vanderbilt might be actually a candidate to be like BYU
South Florida then. Whatever. You know what I mean. Yeah, I'm throwing out a random team.
No, I'm going to keep an eye on this public school, private school thing. I'm really interested in that. Because these private schools seem to have just endless amounts of dough. And BYU, you articulate their particular position, I think, quite well. I think you're right. But, I mean, schools like USC, who's been doing this forever, these public schools. Oregon's a public school, but they've got that connection to the world's biggest sports company.
Right.
So maybe, it's not quite private public, but these private schools that have alumni that are just made of dough. I mean, Duke.
And seem to have some autonomy as far as what they're being held accountable to. Nobody's really criticizing how the money is spent because nobody knows how the money is spent. I think that public outcry that can be had for why, even if it's private money being spent on a public university, faces a different backlash than a team that we have no idea what the financials look like.
I honestly think BYU could have been really good for decades if they were willing to cheat. I think this is an example of that BYU really didn't cheat.
Yeah.
All those years. Because I think the dough was there, and the lazy solution to a non-existent problem has actually really benefited BYU.
Yeah.
I brought this up with Mitch weeks ago, but their issues were keeping the fans that were desperate to be extremely close at bay.
Yeah.
Not finding them. It was telling them to stop buying Legoland stuff, dude.
Right.
Knock it off.
We're not going on trips. Yeah.
Right. Their issue wasn't, their issue was keeping that money out of it.
Right. How many teams?
And now that money can be in it.
How many teams can host a cruise?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Not a lot.
So.
And now you can welcome them all in.
When there was an even playing field before, because there were actually rules, it was a little bit different.
And I think that's the problem. I think if you look at BYU as not being one of these major programs as far as support goes, you're foolish. So if you think you can be, again, a South Florida or whoever, and just say well, if we get an NBA assistant and we get some money going and he worked with players, that's going to solve our problems. We're going to turn into BYU. I think that's hard to replicate.
I do too. I don't think Utah can replicate it. I don't think Utah State can replicate it.
No, definitely not. No.
I don't think there are a lot of schools out there. Interestingly enough, if Stanford's fans actually cared about sports, Stanford might be able to. But
Stanford could blow everybody out of the water.
But their alumni don't care about sports.
Yeah, right.
And their problem is finding people that care, not keeping those people at bay. Where BYU had the opposite issue. So no, I don't think you can replicate it. But you know what? I think that's part of what's great about college sports. And it gets back to our good job, good coach discussion that we always have. Each job is really unique. You have to find a formula that works. It's why I think Witt is actually really smart for staying at Utah. His formula works at Utah.
And may not have at Tennessee.
Right. And maybe something similar can work other places. I think what Gary Anderson initially did at Utah State was pretty similar to what Kyle Whittingham does at Utah. But I bet you would ask Gary, and he had to change things probably significantly just because things at Utah State are different from things at Utah.
Right. To your point where Utah and Utah State can't replicate what BYU does on the basketball court, Utah State can't replicate what Utah does, and vice versa.
Right.
I think Utah State, as we've seen, and it seems like Calhoun's probably going to stick around, but they're going to have to be a bit of a springboard for coaches right now. At least that's what it seems like. That's what recent history has told us. I know Stu Morrill was there for a while. Utah needs to find another guy who you've brought up as their own Randy Bennett, right? They need the guy who's going to be here for 15 years and just gets them to the tournament over and over.
Get an identity and then go from there.
Yeah, even if it's not like the sexiest coaching hire. Kevin Young's a very sexy coaching hire.
Out of the blue, though, which is weird. Not your traditional sexy coaching hire. Yeah. Nobody, present company included, thought that was really... I mean, I guess he interviewed for the job the last time it was open, so maybe we should have seen it coming more.
He's always been in circles.
Right.
But BYU's always had names in circles. I mean, Andy Reid still pops up in circles for BYU coaching when it comes to football. It's like, yeah, but he's never taking it.
Right.
So...
All right, we're doing a cool thing, the Jazz keyword. It's time to reveal our Utah Jazz contest bonus keyword. We're giving away tons of tickets to Sunday's Jazz Pelicans game. To win, you need to go to KSLSports.com and look for the Win Jazz Tickets tab. When you get there, make sure you have this keyword and you get 97 extra entries. Like 97.5, get it? Are you ready for it? All right, here it comes. The keyword, Ben, brace yourself. Dunk. That's D-U-N-K. Enter that keyword in the contest form, and you'll get 97 extra entries. Enter now, KSLSports.com. Do that now and look for the Win Jazz Tickets tile, and then enter that keyword, dunk.
D-U-N-K.
Dunk.
Like Dunkin' Donuts. Like Jordan Schultz's Dunkin' Donuts.
Stay tuned. More next. We'll talk to Cole Bagley about the Utah Hockey Club, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
Cheap bass, cheap bass.
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
What's that?
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're going to talk to Cole Bagley momentarily. Covers the Utah Hockey Club for KSLSports.com. His appearance on the show, of course, is brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. So we'll talk about a team that's won 3 in a row, Ben, and that's trying to close in on the playoffs.
And, you know, they are in a spot where they lose, they're going to be out of the playoffs really quickly. So the fact that they are winning is a sign of the growth and how serious they are. This is what they want to get to. I don't think it actually matters a ton. It would be great to have Stanley Cup playoff hockey here in Utah. We'd be very lucky to get it our first year, especially Arizona fans who never saw it or saw it very rarely in their history. But this has been a good year. They're playing well.
Well, let's get to Cole. Go ahead and hit it, Christian.
With complete coverage of the Utah Hockey Club, this is Cole Bagley of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
What's going on, Cole? How are you? Happy Friday.
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. It's fun that at the point in the season where the Utah Hockey Club has to win games, that's exactly what they're doing. It feels like they're playing their best hockey of the season. Am I wrong?
Oh, you're spot on. This team is peaking when they need to. At the most important time of the year, and it speaks volumes to how good this team is when they're completely healthy. Which I understand is a rarity, especially in the NHL, but. The fact that this team has won 3 games in a row, 4 straight at home, and they're picking up points at a critical time when a lot of teams around them are picking up points as well, and a few of the teams ahead of them are actually, dropping in the standings. This team is, doing everything right, and it's exciting for not only this year, but for what the potential future holds for the Utah Hockey Club.
So is it simply they've got their guys healthy and playing, or is there something specific that has contributed?
I think it's 2 things. First of all, yeah, they've got, the roster that they want on the ice is pretty much 100% healthy. I mean, last night we found out that Michael Carcone is day-to-day, but, for the most part, all the stars are healthy. Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, Mikhail Sergachev, Sean Dursey, Karel Vejmelka. To have your roster with all of its talent, all of its stars, not only playing every night, but giving their best effort. I mean, Clayton Keller just set a new career high last night for a single game with 5 points. He had a goal and an assist. Logan Cooley has jumped right back into, what he was doing before he went out with injury. Same with Dylan Guenther. And I think Sean Dursey has been just an incredible addition to this roster They were 3-1 to start the season, with him, and they're 3-1 since he's been back. And there's other key areas where they've been better on the power play when he's out there, and they're scoring more goals and letting fewer goals in. So, yeah, it's a little bit of the healthy roster, and the guys are really stepping up.
Yeah, can you give us some context on Dursey, who was expected to kind of be the number one defenseman on the team before Sergachev came in, and then he's been hurt, so he's just been not an afterthought. Everyone's waiting for him to get back, but what type of player he was, what type of player he is, because he re-signed with the team in the offseason, and who he is compared to some of the other young players in this core.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dursey is more so known for his offense, and I think a big part of that is, his numbers kind of speak volumes. And if you ask any guy on the team, Dursey's a guy that guys like Keller and Cooley and Schmaltz and Gunther, they want to play with. They want him out on the ice at the same time they are, because he's so gifted offensively. He gets the forwards the puck in dangerous areas. He can obviously shoot. I mean, he scored his first goal last night, and it was an absolute snipe from distance. But then he's very good defensively as well. He's a really smart player. There's a couple instances last night where just kind of that high hockey IQ was on full display. There was a few plays where, he's backing off in situations where if he would have, kind of applied some pressure and bit, he could have gotten beaten himself, and it's a 2-on-1 or a breakaway the other direction. One that comes to mind was a puck was coming out to the point on the offensive zone, but there's a little too much pace on it. And instead of trying to stop the puck with a Minnesota forward right there, he decided to back off and let it go so that there wasn't some sort of, odd man rush, and, the puck went down and Vejmelka stopped it behind the net. So Dursey is, as advertised. Something else I really like about him is he just plays with just he gives everything. Coach Torney was telling me the other day that, Dursey is like some of those other top players in the league. Clayton Keller, I think, is a good example as well of just being fierce competitors. These are guys that want to be on the ice. They want to make an impact every single shift. They want to win hockey games, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. So Dursey's a big part of this team, of this roster. It was another great move by Bill Armstrong to bring him in a trade last season to Arizona, and now obviously with the Utah Hockey Club. So, he's going to be a cornerstone of not only this defense moving forward, but of the team as well.
How good are Vancouver and Calgary? How are they going to close?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, Vancouver's struggling right now, which is good. They've lost a couple games. They lost to Utah, and then they lost last night to the Anaheim Ducks. Calgary as well lost, a big game last night. And so I think Utah's right there. Utah is just as talented, if maybe not more so in terms of their youth and their depth than Vancouver and Calgary. Like I said, Vancouver has been a completely opposite season of what Vancouver was expecting. They've made a couple trades. They had, their star player Quinn Hughes go down with injury for a time, and they're not producing offensively. And so, while Utah is peaking at the right time, Vancouver is potentially bleeding at the wrong time. And so, yeah, Utah's right there. They do need to probably win, 16 or 17 of the games remaining to really have a good shot. But, if the teams ahead of them and around them are struggling, then that only helps Utah's chances.
I don't want to look too far forward, but next year, so much of this year was about, Cooley's going to be in the lineup full time. Gunther's going to be in the lineup full time. It was going to be the development of these young players. Next year, is it a similar roster, do you think? I mean, I know there's some guys who are on expiring contracts and some names will change out, but is the team still waiting for, the next guy to step up and kind of complete this rebuild? Or do you think this is a lot of what the team is going to look like?
I think this is a lot of what the team is going to look like. But, when you look at the expiring contracts, when you look at the number of prospects that they have in TJ Gimla, Cole Baudouin, Dmitry Simashev, Daniil Boat, they've got some guys that are getting close to being ready to start kind of testing the waters in terms of the AHL and the NHL. And so they've got more prospects incoming, which are, the types of players that they need. They need some more size amongst their forwards. They need some more depth. They need some more goal scorers. So that's exciting. I would anticipate that we might see one or two of those prospects, less likely TJ Gimla because, he was injured. He's probably going to do another year in the juniors. But, I think Simashev and Daniil Bode and Baudouin are really going to push to at a minimum be in the AHL this next season, and we'll see if one of them can crack the roster. And then the amount of cap space that Utah has with the incoming increase, I expect, a lot of people are kind of wondering what's Utah going to do at the deadline. As of right now, I don't really see them doing a whole lot. Bill Armstrong told me the other day that, look, a lot of our buying for this season was already done last summer and during the year with bringing in Sergachev and Stenlin and Ian Cole and Oli Mata and, Nick DeSimone. So, the deadline, there might not be a lot of movement for Utah, especially because things are going well. But looking into this next offseason, they have a lot of money to spend, and there's going to be some, really talented forwards, free agent forwards who are going to become available, and Utah has the ability to pay them. And one of those that, I think fans should maybe keep an eye on is Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's looking unlikely that he's going to re-sign with Toronto. And, there's been some rumors among some of the top NHL insiders in the league saying, hey, Utah is probably going to take a swing at Marner or Mikko Rantanen if he becomes available in the offseason. So there is a lot of excitement. This team is very, very good the way that they are. You can see, the potential and the beauty of the construction in terms of the roster. But, I think Bill Armstrong is just getting started.
Does a first-round draft pick have a lot of value in a trade?
Maybe not as much as in the NBA. It just depends. I mean, when you look at this last year's draft, it wasn't. It was about 2 or 3 guys that were really ready to play in the NHL from day one. And for the most part, I'm talking about Macklin Celebrini, the first overall pick, who, has played for the San Jose Sharks from day one and proven that he's an NHL talent. Last year it was, Connor Bedard, the same deal. But, you get to picks 5, 6, and 7, which Utah had number 6 when they selected TJ Gimla. These guys are about 2 or 3 years out from playing in the NHL, whereas in the NBA, most of the first-round picks are coming in right away, as you know, Ben. So, there's definitely value to it. I don't know that it's as valued as a first-round pick in the NBA, but, yeah, certainly.
Cole, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys.
See you, buddy. That's Cole Bagley, covers the Utah Hockey Club for KSLSports.com, and he jumps on with us on Fridays.
I know it. We're all trying to familiarize ourselves with the names and who matters in hockey and who moves the needle. But the guys that Cole just brought up, Mikko Rantanen, Mitch Marner, if those types of guys signed in Utah, it would be better than any free agent the Jazz have ever signed. It would be better. Carlos Boozer ended up being a great player. Memo ended up being a great player. These are better players at their height than the Jazz have ever signed ever. Like that. And that would be very cool to see. That would be a fun part of the Utah Hockey Club, proving that they can be a destination because those are all-stars, those are big-time players, those are Stanley Cup winners. Mitch Marner hasn't, but those are big-time, A-plus, high-level players. If they chose to live in Utah and play with this team, it'd be a fun change for what the narrative has historically been about our state when it comes to sports.
All right, we wrap up the week. Coming up next, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
Joined once again by Jeff Johnson, former University of Utah basketball player.
How much would you like to see one of Utah's own get the job?
I'd love to see it. They've tried everything else. Now it's time to try somebody with Utah ties that remembers the passion that can be in that stadium when they're good, and I'd be all for it and support it and help them as much as I can. I'm very dialed into the high school scene. I get text messages from college coaches all the time, and I would love to be able to have a former Ute that's associated with the program to be able to help sell that to these high school kids. I think at this point they have to try something that can get more fan interest and have some memories from the past that would flood in there as fans see those former coaches and former players helping.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Wrapping up a Friday, wrapping up a week. Got a Jazz game tonight. And then the Sunday, Monday back-to-back, Ben. Do you remember a Sunday, Monday back-to-back?
Was that Monday night they got trounced by the Clippers? A back-to-back? I'd have to go back and look at it. No, there's not a lot. That's a rare one. First of all, Jazz are just playing Sunday games for the first time in a long time.
Sunday home games
because of the hockey club, and the NBA has mandated that you play a couple of these.
That started last year. It started before the hockey club, yeah.
But yeah, not a lot. And there's more now because of the hockey club. You know, you're trying to constantly work around. Let me look. Let me see if there's any
But
Sunday.
they've got a Sunday, Monday back-to-back this week, and then a Sunday, Monday back-to-back next week.
That's right. They've got a couple back-to-back here. They did. No, this is the first one of the year. And if it's the first one of the year, it's pretty safe to bet that it was for the first.
Yeah,
I've been 25 years.
I've been doing this for a while. I do not remember a Sunday, Monday back-to-back. So that'll be a new experience. But yeah, Sunday's game is at home too, the Pelicans. So starting a little early at 6. I wish they just started at 2 or 3.
Yeah, just get the game out of the way and let everyone go. I get it. Sunday, people are at church and aren't necessarily going to the game. People will go after, but
no, I think all weekend games should be played during the day.
I'm with you. You and I have discussed not loving the half an hour later start on Fridays and Saturdays. Somebody somewhere has done the research. Somebody smarter than me who has money on the line, I don't have money on the line, has made this decision that you can bring in more fans and more profits of selling whatever you sell by kicking the game back a half hour. I don't know what it is, but apparently you can do it.
Speaking of which, just a reminder, tonight's game starts at 7:30.
7:30.
Pre-game coverage here on the station will be at 6:30. And we know that Anthony Edwards will not be playing.
He is not playing.
He's been suspended.
Poor guy.
No, he knew. I think he knew the rule.
He apologized to his teammates after the game yesterday. You can't do that. You can't pick up 16 fouls in a season. Technical fouls. When you're at 14, you can't pick up 2. You just got to know. You've got to count. You can't get thrown out of a game with 25 games left to play and then know you're going to be suspended the next night. He missed a game and a half with this suspension, because he got ejected in the last one.
Could you make an argument that it was better that he get to that 16 threshold now than, say, in the playoffs?
Well, the problem is
just get it out of the way.
Every 2 technical fouls he gets suspended again.
Right.
Like, he's probably going to get suspended again. He's got to learn to not do this crap. Like it or not, and you love the fire he plays with, it's not going to be more valuable, that fire, than him missing a game. If he misses games, they're going to end up in the play-in tournament. And they should be the best team in the play-in tournament, I would think. But if Golden State loses Jimmy Butler for 6 games to an ankle injury, and all of a sudden you're playing Jimmy Butler in the 7-8 matchup, and Steph, you're going to lose that game. And then in the second round, you might be playing Dallas. And I don't mean second round of the playoffs, I mean second round of the play-in tournament. Kyrie and Anthony Davis can beat you also, and then you're in the lottery. Nothing happened because you like to argue with the referees. And, that's a little dire. I recognize I'm being a little over emphatic on what this technical foul means. But, yeah, I like that he's a leader. I like that he shows emotion. I think it makes the games more fun. But if you're rooting for that team and you're relying on him to be on the floor, he's got to control it. And he hasn't.
16 techs is a lot.
It's a lot.
They should make that number lower.
What do we think the Jazz leader is in Texas this year? Like, it's got to be Will Hardy with 4? Something like that?
Oh, man, I'm trying to think who even else would have
Walker randomly got one last game.
Who would have even multiple? I mean, has Jordan gotten? No.
Yeah, Jordan may have one.
But like one.
Lowry might have one.
I'm trying to think of reoffenders.
Sexton has 3. Keontae George has 2.
Okay. So 2.
That's a long way from 16.
It's a long ways, yeah. I mean, you got to play a lot, and you got to play a lot of games, but yeah, you have to really get in people's faces.
I don't think that the Ant-Man is the only one getting hosed by the refs.
Of course not.
I agree. He needs to figure out a way to control his behavior.
No, the people who are always at the top are always there. Because you could, off the top of your head, you can tell me who number 2 is, because he's always number 2. It's Draymond Green. And Dylan Brooks is also tied for number 2. It's like, yeah, of course, those guys are the hotheads. Of course those are the top,
I do think, though, that rep gets you texts.
It does.
Like Rasheed Wallace got way more texts than probably he actually earned, but he had the rep of getting technical fouls, so he had no leash, no leeway whatsoever. Yeah. Like Draymond certainly at that point, where he just doesn't get any. And he's earned that, by the way.
He likes to punch people and choke people. He's earned it.
Dylan Brooks has kind of earned that. But I don't know if Anthony Edwards isn't in the rep category yet. I mean, he's got to be earning these texts, right?
I worry that he is now, that he's in the rep. Now he will be. That's the problem. I don't think you can put a lot of this away. Like, Luka has 7. Why does Luka only have 7? He missed half the season. Luka would be up there too. He's also got this rep, and he does complain too much.
Cries,
but so does Anthony Edwards. He whines. He's always mad at something. It's like, I get it. Run back on defense. You can't give up a point. You can't give up 2 points by not getting back on defense, and another point by picking up a technical foul or a game against the Utah Jazz. Like, they are really going to be at a point where the 5th seed, the 6th seed, the 7th seed, the 8th seed in the West are going to be decided by 2 games at the end of the year. And you could look back at losing a game to the Jazz on a Friday night as the reason why you are in the play-in tournament.
Man, I'll tell you what I do not miss. I don't miss 2 things about watching Rudy Gobert play on a regular basis. Him not running over a smaller guy and dunking it. And he cried so much.
His little, throw his fist down, his little cross-arm shoulder thing that he did. When he was mad he didn't get a call.
He whined instead of running so much.
Yeah, he did.
So much. It was so hard to watch. I can't stand watching Chris Paul because all he does is cry. It's just so obnoxious.
It's like Phillip Rivers. Watching Phillip Rivers play really frustrated me. He was the same.
Whiny.
Did he complain a lot?
Always wanted to hit.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
Yeah, I don't think of football players as much when I think of complaining to the referees.
No, certainly not as much. But there are quarterbacks that do it.
And you can't see it, so maybe that's the difference. Like, you see it so often in the NBA. Just shut up and run down the floor, for crying out loud. I'll tell you what, half the reason Walker Kessler is as good as he is this year is simply because he runs his face off.
He's where he's supposed to be.
Every play.
Yep.
And I don't think I've seen him cry to the officials once. That's probably an overstatement, but you get my point.
No, when he does, he says, come on. Or he, laughs. You know what I mean?
He doesn't trot up the floor with them while...
He's never sprinted at a ref.
Joe Ingles style. Remember when Joe Ingles assaulted the ref in that scuffle with the Jazz? You remember what I'm talking about? Rudy was getting into it with somebody, and Ingles ran straight at the scrum and totally ran over the ref.
Oh, get out of the way.
Seriously ran over the ref.
I suspect next year Isaiah Collier will lead the Jazz in technical fouls.
He kind of has that.
He has that fire. How many does he have? You got the Jazz numbers pulled up?
I just saw Sexton and Keontae.
Okay. Isaiah's going to be up there. Isaiah has fighting technical fouls. I actually kind of think I wouldn't be surprised if Isaiah's up there. He's got at least 2 fighting technical fouls.
Oh, he has 2.
Isaiah does. Okay.
I missed him the first go-around. Yeah. Sexton leads with 3. Collier and Kessler each have 2.
Good for Walker.
Sure.
I would be totally fine with Walker being up in the 8 or 9 range. Doesn't need to be at 16, but for a guy who blocks a lot of shots and get to pick up fouls, he should be picking up techs.
All right.
You should have that guy.
Hans and Scotty G are coming up next. Ben and I will be back on Monday.
Thanks,
Jake
Christian.
and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.